In the farthest reaches of the cosmos, where the very fabric of reality wore thin, a convergence of worlds occurred. It was not a gentle meeting, but a violent tear, a wound in the universe itself. Through this cosmic laceration poured the essence of two realms never meant to touch, a galaxy far, far away, and the dying lands of the Erdtree. The skies above Limgrave darkened unnaturally, not with storm clouds, but with something the inhabitants of the lands between had never witnessed, a darkness absolute, consuming even starlight. The air grew heavy, charged with an energy foreign to this realm of gods and demigods. Those sensitive to the currents of power felt it first. The tarnished paused in their endless quest. The servants of forgotten deities looked skyward in confusion, and deep in the catacombs, ancient guardians stirred from their vigilant slumber. It began with a sound. Not the familiar toll of bells announcing death, nor the roar of dragons claiming territory, but a mechanical rhythm, steady, relentless, artificial, breath drawn and released through machinery. In a land where magic flowed like water and miracles were currency, this methodical cadence spoke of something utterly alien. The tear in reality manifested physically at the Chapel of Anticipation, that lonely island where many tarnished first awakened to their purpose. The air split vertically, edges glowing with energies that fluctuated between searing blue and angry red. From this wound emerged not a creature of the lands between, but a figure tall and imposing, clad entirely in black armor that reflected no light. A cape billowed behind him despite the still air, and that mechanical breathing in, out, announced his presence more effectively than any herald's trumpet. Where his boot touched the ground, grass withered. Where his shadow fell, light seemed permanently diminished. He stood motionless for several moments, taking in his surroundings with the expressionless mask that concealed whatever face might lie beneath. Then, with deliberate purpose, he ignited a weapon, a blade of pure crimson energy that hummed with destructive potential. No spell in all the lands between created light in such a manner. The grafted scion, guardian of this isolated chapel, sensed the intruder immediately. It skittered forward on too many limbs, moving with the unnatural grace of a creature never meant to exist. The black-armored figure turned slowly, regarding this abomination with the clinical detachment of one who had seen far worse horrors. Their clash was brief and decisive. The scion lunged with multiple blades, only to find its attack halted mid-air. Not by shield or weapon, but by an invisible force emanating from the stranger's outstretched hand. Suspended and struggling, the creature let out a screech that echoed across the chapel walls. With a casual gesture, the dark figure closed his fist, and the grafted scion's body compressed with a sickening crunch before being discarded like refuse. This power, the figure spoke, his voice deep and resonant, processed through his mask's vocoder, is unfamiliar, yet I sense its potential. He looked to the horizon, where the faint glow of the Erdtree was visible even from this distance. A new realm to bring to order. And so began the arrival of Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, to the lands between. News of the strange visitor spread quickly, as is often the case in lands balanced on the edge of calamity. Rumors traveled from soldier encampments to isolated villages, from nomadic caravans to the hidden enclaves of sorcerers. They spoke of a shadow that walked like a man but commanded powers beyond understanding. Some claimed he was yet another offspring of Marika, returned to claim a birthright. Others whispered he might be an envoy of the greater will itself, come to judge those who had strayed from grace. Vader moved through the landscape with purpose, studying this new realm with a tactical mind that had conquered star systems. The lands between were broken. That much was immediately clear, a realm caught in a cycle of endless decay and stunted rebirth. It reminded him, in some ways, of what the Clone Wars had done to countless worlds under the Republic. But here, the devastation was older, more fundamental to the nature of existence. At the ruins of the Church of Ele, Vader encountered his first denizens of this realm, willing to speak rather than attack. Kale, the merchant, watched with wary eyes as the Sith Lord approached, the donkey beside him braying in terror and straining against its tether. Well, well, what have we here? Kale kept his tone light, though his hand never strayed far from his hidden blade. Another tarnished, are you? Though your attire is unusual, even for these strange times. I am no tarnished, Vader replied, the mechanical cadence of his breathing punctuating the silence between his words. I seek understanding of this realm and its power structures. Kale laughed, a sound tinged with the bitterness of one who had seen too much suffering. Power structures. Simple enough, stranger. The strong devour the weak. The gods have abandoned us, and we all fight over scraps of former glory. He gestured toward the distant castle. Stormvale holds one such scrap, Godric the Grafted, a pathetic demigod clinging to borrowed might. Vader's helmeted gaze turned toward the castle. And these demigods, they control fragments of some greater power. The great runes, yes. Kale nodded. Pieces of the Elden Ring, shattered in the cataclysm. Whoever collects them all might have the power to become the new Elden Lord, or so the Tarnished believe. Elden Lord, Vader repeated, the title falling heavily from his vocoder. He reached out with his senses, feeling the currents of this unfamiliar power that permeated everything. It was not the Force as he knew it, yet it responded to his probing in similar ways. What gives these runes their authority? Kale shook his head. Questions better directed to scholars at the round table hold, if you can find entry. I merely sell wares and observe the follies of those with grander ambitions. Before their conversation could continue, the ground trembled. From over the nearby ridge appeared a figure on horseback, the tree sentinel, golden armor gleaming even in the dim light, his halberd held ready. Ah, sighed Kale, already retreating to a safer distance. The welcoming committee arrives. These guardians brook no trespassers near Marika's domain. The tree sentinel charged without warning or challenge, his massive weapon describing a deadly arc toward Vader's head. What happened next would become the first of many tales to spread across the land. The Sith Lord did not dodge or parry with his lightsaber. Instead, he raised his hand, and the charging horseman froze in place, mount and rider both suspended in mid-gallop. The tree sentinel struggled against this invisible restraint, his armor creaking with the effort. "Your dedication to your duty is admirable," Vader said, circling the immobilized guardian. "But your power is insignificant compared to the dark side." With a gesture, Vader sent the sentinel flying backward, crashing through ancient stone pillars. The warrior rose quickly, surprisingly resilient, and charged again. This time, Vader ignited his lightsaber, the crimson blade slicing through the sentinel's halberd as if it were made of paper. A second strike separated the guardian from his mount, and a third left only a golden helm rolling across the grass. Kale watched in astonishment as Vader extinguished his weapon by the fingers. The merchant whispered, "What manner of sorcery is this? No incantation, no glintstone staff, not even a proper armament." "It is not sorcery," Vader replied, "and I have seen enough to know my path forward." He turned toward the castle in the distance. These demigods and their fragments of power must be investigated. The Sith Lord's journey to Stormvale Castle cut a swath through the landscape of Limgrave. The soldiers of Godric fell before him without landing a single blow, their weapons proving useless against lightsaber and force alike. Vader did not kill indiscriminately. Those who fled were permitted to escape, becoming witnesses to spread word of his coming. It was a calculated strategy. Fear had always been a weapon as effective as any lightsaber in his arsenal. At the gates of Stormvale, he encountered Margit, the fell omen, a towering figure wielding a staff of golden light. For the first time since his arrival, Vader found an opponent worthy of his full attention. "Someone must extinguish thy flame," Margit declared, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Let it be Margit the Fell." Their battle shook the very foundations of the castle. Margit's conjured weapons, hammers, and swords of golden light were met with the crimson blade of Vader's lightsaber. The clash of energies sent cascades of sparks raining down upon the courtyard. Margit fought with the desperation of one who had held his post against countless challengers, but never one like this. "Your tenacity is impressive," Vader acknowledged as he deflected another barrage of spectral daggers. "But ultimately futile." Margit snarled, "Thou art of passing skill, warrior from beyond. But I have guarded these halls since time immemorial. No tarnished shall pass while I draw breath." "Then that is your fatal error," Vader replied, "for I am no tarnished." The Sith Lord unleashed the full might of the dark side, lifting Margit into the air and subjecting him to a force crush that splintered even his enhanced body. As the Guardian fell, dying but defiant to the last, he whispered words that gave even Vader pause. The hands of the fingers reach further than thou canst comprehend, Outlander. Thy power is great, but this land answers to laws beyond thy knowing. Within Stormvale's labyrinthine halls, Vader encountered the castle's true horror, Godric the Grafted, a misshapen demigod who had attached countless limbs to his body in a desperate bid for power. Upon seeing Vader enter his courtyard, Godric laughed, the sound echoing from dozens of mouths grafted across his unnatural form. A newcomer to my realm? Godric's mane head tilted with interest. Kneel before me, stranger, that I might graft thy strength to mine. Vader stood unmoved. Your abominations are an affront to nature itself. I have encountered beings who sought power through similar means. They too failed to understand true strength. Godric roared in rage. I command thee, kneel. I am the lord of all that is golden. You command nothing, Vader replied coldly. Your mutilation of yourself reveals the truth. You fear weakness more than you desire power. Such fear has its uses, but not when it drives one to such desperation. The battle that followed was witnessed by the few servants and soldiers who had survived Vader's initial assault. They watched from shadowed alcoves as their lord, who had terrorized them for so long, met an opponent beyond his understanding. Godric's many arms wielded axes, spears, and swords with frantic energy. When those proved ineffective against Vader's defenses, he revealed his trump card, a grafted dragon's head that spewed fire across the courtyard. Vader walked through the flames unscathed, his armor and cape momentarily illuminated by the inferno, but suffering no damage. The sight broke something in Godric's fragile confidence. What manner of being art thou? The demigod asked, genuine fear replacing his arrogance. I am Darth Vader, came the reply, and your great rune now belongs to me. The lightsaber made short work of Godric's many limbs, each severed appendage falling uselessly to the ground. With his opponent reduced to a pitiful core, Vader reached out through the Force, not to kill but to extract. The great rune, a fragment of cosmic law embedded within Godric's very being, was torn free, causing the demigod to shriek in agony before collapsing, diminished beyond recovery. Vader examined the rune, a construct of energy and concept rather than physical matter. It resonated differently than the Force, yet he could feel its significance, a piece of fundamental reality, a law made manifest. Through his connection to the dark side, he found he could absorb this power, integrate it with his own. As he did so, the mechanical rhythm of his breathing momentarily faltered, then resumed at a stronger cadence. Most interesting, Vader observed as new understanding flowed through him. These runes are conduits of authority, not merely power, but the right to reshape reality itself. The survivors of Stormvale, watching this scene unfold, spread across the lands between with urgent news. A being beyond understanding had defeated Godric and taken his great rune, but had not restored it to the Erdtree as prophecy foretold. Instead, this Dark Lord had claimed it for himself. Word of Vader's presence reached the Round Table Hold, that neutral ground where Tarnished gathered under the guidance of the Two Fingers. The emissaries of higher powers debated the significance of this development. Was this stranger the harbinger of a new age, or a threat to the natural order? The finger reader crone trembled as she interpreted the will of her masters. "The Two Fingers tremble," she announced to the gathered warriors and scholars. "They sense a presence unknown to the greater will, a power neither of light nor dark as we understand them, but something separate. The natural laws bend around this intruder in ways unforeseen." Sir Gideon Ofnir, the all-knowing, stroked his chin thoughtfully. If this being truly absorbed Godric's rune rather than returning it, then his intentions cannot align with the restoration of the Elden Ring. We must learn more before deciding whether to treat him as ally or enemy. Meanwhile, Vader continued his exploration of this new realm, drawn next to the region of Luonia and its magical academy. The waters of the lake parted before him as he walked, responding to his command of forces beyond the understanding of local sorcerers. His destination, Raya Lucaria, where another great rune was said to be held by the sorceress Renala. As Vader approached the academy gates, he was met not by guards, but by a delegation of sorcerers, led by a figure in an ornate mask, Master Azur, one of the academy's most respected scholars. "We have observed your progress through our scrying pools," Azur stated without preamble. "Your power is unlike any we have catalogued in our extensive studies of the cosmos." "Your academy studies the stars," Vader replied, "yet you understand so little of what lies beyond them." Azur's head tilted slightly. "Perhaps you might enlighten us then. We offer knowledge in exchange for knowledge-safe passage through our domain if you would share insights about your unique abilities." "I seek the one called Renala and the great rune in her possession," Vader said. "I have no interest in harming your scholars if they do not interfere." Attention fell over the delegation, and Azur's voice grew cautious. "Queen Renala is not as she once was. Grief has fractured her mind, yet she remains under the protection of both the Academy and her daughter's enchantments." "Why do you seek her rune?" "To understand the fundamental nature of this realm," Vader answered, "a partial truth. Your queen's condition is of no concern to me." Azur conferred briefly with his colleagues before responding. "We cannot permit an unknown entity to approach our queen uninvited. However, if you truly seek only understanding." Before he could finish, Vader's patience reached its limit. With a gesture, the entire delegation was lifted from the ground, clutching at invisible pressures around their throats. I find your lack of cooperation disturbing. Vader said, I will reach Renala with or without your blessing. The choice of how many casualties result from my visit is yours. Azu, gasping for breath, signaled surrender. Vader released the sorcerers, who collapsed to the stones, drawing ragged breaths. Your powers, Azu wheezed. They bypass our wards and protections completely. How is this possible? The Force exists in all living things, throughout all galaxies and dimensions. Vader explained, surprising himself with his willingness to share this knowledge. Your sorceries manipulate local energies through catalysts and formulas. The Force requires only will and training to command. This explanation sent ripples of excitement and fear through the gathering of scholars, who began furiously debating the implications even as they maintained a respectful distance from the Sith Lord. Vader left them to their discussions, proceeding into the academy unescorted. The halls of Raya Lucaria presented challenges different from those of storm-veiled traps of arcane design, animated guardians, and young sorcerers eager to prove themselves against an intruder. Vader moved through these obstacles methodically, disabling mechanisms with precision and disarming students with non-lethal force techniques when possible. He had no quarrel with scholars pursuing knowledge, recognizing in them an echo of his own past interest in understanding the mysteries of the Force. In the Grand Library, he finally encountered Renala, Queen of the Full Moon. She sat amid a circle of her children, reborn scholars, caught in an endless cycle of death and rebirth through her imperfect sorcery. Above her floated a golden egg, radiating power that Vader immediately recognized as different from the woman herself. The great rune is not truly in her possession, Vader realized aloud. It is contained within that egg, a projection or protection left by another. Renala looked up at the sound of his voice, her eyes unfocused and distant. Another lambkin comes to be reborn, she murmured. But your thread is strange, woven from stars I cannot name. I have no interest in rebirth, Vader stated, only in the power you guard without understanding. As he approached, the air in the library changed. The egg above Renala pulsed, and her fragile scholars scattered in terror. The Queen herself rose, suddenly imbued with a presence greater than her broken mind should allow. That is far enough, warrior from another shore. She spoke, her voice now overlaid with another, stronger presence. I am Rani, daughter of Renala, and I will not permit you to disturb my mother's peace or take what is rightfully hers. The projection of Rani's will transformed the library into a moonlit landscape, a battlefield of her choosing. Renala, empowered by her daughter's magic, unleashed a barrage of sorceries, unlike anything Vader had yet encountered in this realm. Comets of pure magical energy rained from above, while summoned creatures formed from books and ink attacked from all sides. Vader deflected what he could with lightsaber and force barriers, but some spells penetrated his defenses. forcing him to acknowledge the unique properties of this world's magic. It did not behave entirely like the energies he was accustomed to manipulating. "Your abilities are impressive," Vader conceded as he steadied himself after a particularly powerful assault. "But they are still bound by rules I am only beginning to understand." "And you are bound by the limits of flesh," Rani's voice replied through her mother. "Even with your machinery and alien power, you remain mortal." Vader's mechanical breathing accelerated slightly. "You perceive only part of my nature." With that, he reached deeper into the dark side than he had since arriving in this realm, channeling pain and rage accumulated across decades of suffering. The resulting force maelstrom shattered Rani's illusory battlefield and sent Renala crashing back to her seat. The golden egg descended, its protective enchantments failing against Vader's concentrated assault. Yet, as his hand closed around this second great rune, Vader hesitated. Unlike Godric, Renala posed no threat to this world. Taking her rune would serve his growing understanding of this realm's power, but at what cost to his own evolving purpose here? In that moment of hesitation, he felt a presence distant but unmistakable, a glimmer of familiar energy that should not exist in this foreign dimension. "Obi-Wan," he whispered, his focus momentarily broken. It was not his old master, but the momentary distraction was enough. The egg in his grasp pulsed once, and a spectral blue blade pierced through Vader's shoulder, not his armor, but somehow phasing through it to damage the flesh beneath. He turned to find a four-armed spirit wielding multiple weapons, its face a blank mask. "Blade," Rani's voice identified the newcomer, "my shadow and protector across realities." Vader recovered quickly, engaging this new opponent with his lightsaber. The spirit wolf warrior matched him stroke for stroke, its spectral weapons somehow resisting the lightsaber's cutting edge. Their duel ranged across the library, scattering ancient tomes and sending students fleeing in terror. "Your loyalty to your mistress is commendable," Vader acknowledged as they locked blades, but ultimately misplaced. With a surge of force power, Vader repelled the spirit guardian, sending it crashing through a bookshelf. Before it could recover, he immobilized it with the Force, studying its nature with his senses. "Interesting," he observed. "You are bound to her by something deeper than choice, a cosmic law embedded in your very essence." Rani's voice spoke again, now emanating directly from the golden egg. "Each Empyrean is granted a shadow by the two fingers, a failsafe should we stray from their designated path. Blade is mine, as loyal in my rebellion as he would have been in my compliance. Then you too chafe against predetermined destiny," Vader noted, releasing his hold on the Shadow Warrior as understanding dawned. "You seek to break free of these fingers and their design." A pause then. "You perceive much, outsider. Yes, I rejected the path laid before me by the greater will. I seek a different order, one free from the direct influence of outer gods." Vader extinguished his lightsaber, a decision forming in his mind. Then perhaps we have more in common than initially apparent. I too served masters whose vision proved limited. The presence in the egg seemed to consider this. What is it you truly seek in our realm, Dark Lord? Initially, power and understanding, Vader answered honestly. But having absorbed one great rune and studied another, I begin to see the true nature of your world's conflict. These fragments contain not just power, but fundamental principles, laws that govern reality itself. And what would you do with such principles? Were they yours to command? Ranni asked. Vader looked around at the library, at cowering scholars and ancient knowledge, at Rennala still lost in her grief-stricken delusions. Something about this realm was affecting him, causing him to reflect on choices long past. In my world, he said slowly, I sought to impose order through absolute authority. I believed chaos and suffering could only be eliminated through control. He paused, the mechanical rhythm of his breathing filling the silence. I have begun to question whether such methods truly lead to the outcomes I desired. An interesting evolution for one who radiates such darkness, Ranni observed. Take your leave, Darth Vader. My mother's rune remains with her, but I will not stand in your way as you explore our realm further. Perhaps our paths will cross again when you have gained greater clarity about your purpose here. Vader inclined his head slightly, not quite a bow, but an acknowledgement of mutual respect. Your mother will remain undisturbed. But know this, Ranni the Witch, I will uncover the truth of this shattered world, and when I do, choices will need to be made about its future. As Vader departed Raya Lucaria, word of his confrontation with the projection of Ranni spread quickly through networks of sorcerers and spies. The narrative evolved with each telling. Some claimed he had been defeated and driven away, others that he had shown mercy in victory. All agreed that this visitor from beyond posed a fundamental challenge to the established powers of the lands between. In the shadowy chambers of the Round Table Hold, heated debates continued about how to respond to this unprecedented development. Sir Gideon Ofnir consulted ancient texts seeking precedent, while finger reader Enia continued to interpret the increasingly agitated movements of the two fingers. The greater will is disturbed, she announced to the gathered tarnished. This intruder represents an outside context problem, a variable unforeseen in the grand design. The two fingers command that the Dark Lord be brought before them, or failing that, destroyed. A hooded figure stepped forward from the shadows, hunter of the dead. And how exactly do you propose we destroy what Godric and Rennala's champions could not? This being cuts through our strongest defenses, as if they were missed. Gideon Ofnir cleared his throat. We must be strategic. Reports indicate the Dark Lord seeks understanding of our realm's fundamental structures. We should allow him to continue his exploration while we observe and learn more about his capabilities and limitations. A dangerous gamble, Dee replied. What if his next target is the Erdtree itself? The debate was interrupted by the arrival of Melina, her single, visible eye conveying urgency. The Dark Lord has made contact with Mohg, Lord of Blood. I witnessed their meeting in the depths of the subterranean shunning grounds. This news sent a ripple of alarm through the gathering. Mohg, an Omen prince devoted to an outer god of blood, represented one of the most corrupting influences in the lands between. Did they form an alliance? Gideon demanded. Melina shook her head. No, quite the opposite. The Dark Lord rejected Mohg's offer of partnership, stating that blood sacrifice is an inefficient path to true power. When Mohg attempted to forcibly induct him into the blood covenant, the Dark Lord. She paused, searching for words. He did something I've never witnessed before. He seemed to purge the blood corruption from his own body through sheer will, then use that same power against Mohg, forcing the blood in the Lord of Blood's own veins to freeze. Silence fell over the gathering as they contemplated this development. He left Mohg alive, Melina continued, but greatly weakened. Before departing, he told Mohg that all gods demand sacrifice while offering little in return. The implication seemed to be that he views our outer gods as parasitic. Dee laughed bitterly. Well, he's not entirely wrong on that count. Gideon's eyes narrowed in thought. This is significant. The Dark Lord opposes the current power structure, yet he's not aligning with the established rebels either. He's charting a third path. But what path? Asked Enia. And to what end? Meanwhile, Vader had continued his methodical exploration of the lands between, moving next to the festering rot of Caelid. The Crimson Wastelands reminded him of certain Sith worlds he had visited during his apprenticeship places where dark side energies had physically corrupted the landscape. In the heart of Caelid, he encountered General Radan, once the mightiest warrior of the demigods, now reduced to a mindless, wandering colossus consumed by scarlet rot. The battlefield stretched across vast dunes, where fallen warriors' weapons stood as makeshift grave markers. Unlike his previous confrontations, Vader approached this one with something approaching reverence. He could sense, even through Radan's madness, the echo of what this warrior had once been, a general of unparalleled skill who had held back the very stars through his gravitational magic. Your mind is gone, Vader observed as the massive figure charged toward him. But your power remains. In another life, you might have been a worthy opponent. Their battle shook the very foundations of Caelid. Radan's massive blades crashed against Vader's lightsaber with force that would have shattered ordinary weapons. The demigod's gravity magic challenged even Vader's mastery of the Force, creating localized distortions that the Sith Lord had to continuously counteract. Yet, for all his raw power, Radan lacked the strategic mind that had once made him legendary. Vader systematically analyzed his attack patterns, adapting his defense and finding openings with the clinical precision that had made him the galaxy's most feared enforcer. As the battle reached its climax, Vader found himself reluctant to deliver a killing blow. Instead, he focused his attack on the source of corruption, the scarlet rot that had reduced this proud warrior to a shambling husk. Drawing on techniques he had glimpsed in ancient Sith holocrons, Vader attempted something he had never tried before, a purification through the Force. It was not a light side technique, nor fully of the dark side. Rather, it drew on his understanding of midichlorians and life energy, channeling the Force to isolate and neutralize the rot's influence. The process drained him severely, bringing him to his knees beside the fallen general. For a brief moment, clarity returned to Radan's eyes. The massive warrior looked upon Vader, not with madness, but with recognition of a kindred spirit, another being who understood the burden of overwhelming power and its cost. No words were exchanged, but something passed between them, an understanding beyond language. Then Radan's consciousness faded again, though the rot's hold on him had been weakened. The general collapsed, not dead, but in a deep healing trance that might, given time, restore some portion of his former self. Vader claimed Radan's great rune, not by tearing it from him as he had done with Godric, but receiving it as something freely given in that moment of clarity. This third rune resonated differently with the two he had already encountered, creating a harmony of cosmic principles within Vader's being. As he meditated on this new acquisition, a realization came to him. Each rune represented not just power, but a fundamental concept of Order Godric's embodied hierarchy and authority, while Radan's contained the principles of balance and opposition. Together, they were beginning to form a coherent picture of how this reality functioned at its deepest level. The Elden Ring is not merely a source of power, Vader concluded. It is the organizing principle of this entire reality, like the Force, but externalized and codified into law rather than flowing freely through all things. This epiphany was interrupted by the arrival of a small, pot-shaped being who had been watching the battle from a distance. It approached Vader with awkward, shuffling steps. "Hello there, great warrior. I am Alexander, Iron Fist. I witnessed your duel with mighty Radan. Most impressive. Never seen anything like it in all my travels." Vader regarded this curious creation with interest. Unlike other beings he had encountered, Alexander radiated no fear of him, only genuine admiration and curiosity. "You are not like other inhabitants of this realm," Vader observed. "Your construction is unusual." Alexander rocked back and forth happily. "Indeed, I am a living jar, you see. We're fairly rare, even in these strange lands. I travel seeking to fill myself with the essence of great warriors, that I might one day become a mighty warrior jar myself." "An unusual ambition," Vader commented. "Perhaps," Alexander agreed cheerfully. "But we all need purpose, don't we? Even you, I'd wager, though your purpose seems complicated." Vader was surprised by the insight from this seemingly simple creature. "What makes you say that?" "Well," Alexander tilted his pot body thoughtfully. You defeated Radan, but didn't slay him. You could have taken his head as a trophy, yet you seemed to heal him somewhat instead. Not the actions of someone simply seeking power for power's sake, is it? For the first time since arriving in the lands between, Vader felt truly seen. This unassuming Jar had perceived something about his evolving purpose that even he was still struggling to articulate. I came to this realm seeking understanding, Vader admitted. I have gained power in the process, but it has become secondary to a greater question. And what question might that be? Alexander asked. Vader looked toward the distant Erdtree, its golden light visible even from Caelid's rotted shores. Whether order imposed is truly order at all, or merely the illusion of it. Their unlikely conversation was interrupted by a change in the air, a shimmer of blue light that coalesced into a familiar form. Blade, the wolf warrior and shadow of Rani, appeared before them, no longer hostile, but clearly urgent. Dark Lord! He addressed Vader formally. My Lady Rani requests your presence. Events have been set in motion by your actions that require immediate attention. What events? Vader demanded. The two fingers have declared you anathema to the greater will, Blade explained. They have activated all their remaining servants against you, including the baleful shadows and the Black Knife assassins. But more concerning is that the other outer gods have also taken notice of your presence. The frenzied flame stirs beneath the capital, and the formless mother seeks a new champion since you rejected Moog. Alexander's pot body quivered with excitement. My word, the entire cosmic order in uproar. What a time to be alive, or whatever it is that I am. Vader considered this development. I will meet with Rani, but first I must complete my understanding of the runes I have gathered. He turned to Alexander. You claim to seek the essence of great warriors. Would you bear witness to what happens next? Would I? It would be the highest honor, Alexander exclaimed. Vader nodded to Blade. Tell your mistress I will come to her after I have completed my work here. She will understand the importance of proper preparation. After Blade departed, Vader sat cross-legged on the battlefield, the three great runes hovering before him in a triangle formation. Alexander watched in fascination as the Sith Lord entered a deep meditative state, his mechanical breathing slowing to an almost imperceptible rhythm. Within his meditation, Vader explored the true nature of the runes, not as objects of power, but as concepts given form. They were, he realized, comparable to the midichlorians that enabled force sensitivity in his home galaxy, but on a macro scale, fundamental particles of cosmic law rather than biological conduits. Hours passed as Vader's consciousness expanded, incorporating the knowledge contained within the runes. Alexander maintained a respectful silence.